Betrayal unveiled. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with energy as diplomats from dozens of species argued over the fate of the Valoran people. Holographic projections of planetary maps and fleet movements hovered above the massive round table, casting flickering light on the tense faces of the representatives. The air was thick with tension, and the usually calm, dignified environment of the chamber now felt like the scene of an impending storm. Commander Elijah Grant sat silently in his chair, his sharp blue eyes scanning the chaos around him. As Earth's representative, he had been summoned to witness the Council's sudden meeting, a meeting that no one had expected. He leaned forward, hands clenched on the cold surface of the table, listening intently to the accusations being hurled at the Valoran. "This is an outrage," shouted Ambassador Trellick of the Valoran. His golden skin shimmered under the chamber's artificial lights as he stood to defend his people. "The charges against us are baseless. We have been loyal members of this council for centuries. How dare you accuse us of treachery?" Councillor Merrick, a towering alien with reptilian features and a deep, rumbling voice, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "The evidence is clear, Trellick. Your people have been secretly aligning with the Draken Raiders, supplying them with weapons and information. This is an act of war against the Council." Elijah's brows furrowed. He had read the so-called evidence on his way to the meeting, and it was flimsy at best. The Valoran were a peaceful species, known for their advanced medicine and diplomacy. The idea that they would betray the Council and work with the ruthless Draken Raiders didn't make sense. "Councillor Merrick," Elijah spoke, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Earth has reviewed the evidence, and I must say, it seems questionable. Why would the Valoran risk their reputation and survival for an alliance with the Draken? This feels like a setup." All eyes turned to him. Some were filled with disdain, others held a glimmer of hope. Trellick nodded in gratitude, but his face remained pale with fear. Merrick sneered, his sharp teeth glinting. "Earth's representative dares to question the Council's judgment. Do not forget your place, human. The Council has spoken. The Valoran are guilty, and their punishment will be swift." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elijah felt a sinking sensation in his chest. Something was wrong. This wasn't just about the Valoran. There was a deeper motive behind this sudden attack, and he had a feeling Earth might be next. The Council's speaker, a stern-faced alien with glowing silver eyes, raised her hand to silence the room. "The decision is final. Effective immediately, the Galactic Council will cut all ties with the Valoran. Their colonies will be occupied, and their fleets will be disarmed. Any resistance will be met with force." Trellick collapsed into his seat, his head in his hands. The other Valoran diplomats looked equally defeated. Elijah felt a wave of anger rise within him. How could the Council turn on one of its own like this? Before he could speak again, an elderly Valoran woman stood. She was frail, her golden skin dull with age, but her voice was strong. "You will regret this decision," she said, her eyes locking onto Merrick's. "The Council's thirst for power will not end with us. Mark my words, Earth will be next. They fear humanity's strength." Her words sent a chill through the room. Merrick growled, but he didn't deny it. Elijah's heart raced. He had to warn Earth. As the Valoran diplomats were escorted out of the chamber under armed guard, Elijah discreetly activated his comm device. "This is Commander Grant," he whispered. "Secure channel to Earth. We have a problem." The scene shifted to the outer edge of the Valoran system, where refugee ships attempted to flee the chaos. Families crowded aboard overburdened vessels, their faces etched with despair. Suddenly, the sleek shapes of Council warships appeared on the horizon, their weapons glowing ominously. One by one, the refugee ships were targeted and destroyed. Explosions lit up the dark void of space, and the screams of the innocent echoed through the comm channels. Elijah watched the carnage unfold on the Council's central display. His fists tightened, and his jaw clenched. He had seen enough. Standing abruptly, he pointed a finger at Merrick. "This isn't justice," he said, his voice filled with quiet rage. "This is genocide." Merrick smirked, unbothered by the accusation. "Call it what you want, human. The Valoran brought this upon themselves." Elijah turned and stormed out of the chamber, his mind racing. Earth needed to prepare. The Council was no longer a symbol of unity and peace. It was a weapon of control, and it wouldn't stop with the Valoran. As he stepped onto his ship, he stared out at the stars, his determination solidifying. "If they want war," he muttered, "Earth will give them one they'll never forget." Earth's silent fury. The war room on Earth's orbital station was a fortress of shadows, dimly lit by holographic screens, displaying fleet formations and intercepted Council transmissions. Around the central table, Earth's leaders and military strategists sat in grim silence, their faces illuminated by the faint blue glow of the tactical displays. The air was thick with tension as President Alicia Marlowe entered, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Play the message," she ordered. The room fell silent as Commander Elijah Grant's recorded transmission filled the space. His voice was steady but laced with urgency. "The Council's betrayal is clear. The Valoran were scapegoats. They destroyed refugee ships, men, women, children, all slaughtered without cause. Earth is next. They fear us, our strength, our independence. Prepare for retaliation." The recording ended, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. General Marcus Drell, a towering figure with a scar running down his cheek, broke the quiet. "We can't let this stand, Madam President. The Council won't stop with the Valoran. They'll come for us next, and we need to strike first." President Marlowe shook her head, her sharp green eyes narrowing. "If we act without proof, we risk becoming the aggressors in the eyes of the galaxy. The Council controls the narrative. We need more than force. We need strategy." Across the table, Admiral Serena Vega leaned forward, her reputation as Earth's most brilliant tactician preceding her. "The Council wants us to react with anger. That's their game. But if we play it their way, we'll fall into their trap." She gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show a massive fleet stationed near Valoran space. "They're already positioning their forces. They expect us to retaliate. If we go now, we'll lose." The President nodded. "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Vega's lips curled into a small, determined smile. "We fight on our terms, not theirs. We'll mobilize our fleet, but not for open war. Not yet. We need to gather intelligence, disrupt their plans, and show the galaxy the Council's true face. This isn't just a war of ships. It's a war of perception." General Drell grunted. "Spying and waiting. That's not my style. But if it gets us an edge, I'll follow your lead." The room buzzed with quiet agreement as the President made her decision. "Admiral Vega, you'll have full authority to oversee this operation. Elijah Grant will be your liaison in Council space. We cannot afford mistakes." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Valoran refugee fleet, a flicker of hope emerged. Hidden aboard one of the surviving ships was a group of Valoran engineers carrying something extraordinary: the blueprints for a prototype stealth system capable of cloaking entire fleets. They had intended to offer it to the Council as a gesture of goodwill, but now it was their lifeline. "Contact Earth," said Jirak, the lead engineer, his voice low and urgent. "If we can deliver this technology, maybe they can turn the tide." The message was sent through encrypted channels, reaching Admiral Vega just as Earth's fleet began to mobilize. She studied the plans with growing excitement. "This could work," she murmured. "With this technology, we could move unseen, striking where they least expect." Far from Earth, Commander Elijah Grant found himself in the heart of enemy territory. The Council's grand capital station, a sprawling structure of gleaming towers and endless corridors, was as imposing as ever, but now it felt like a den of wolves. Grant's position as Earth's representative allowed him access to key areas, but he had to tread carefully. The Council was watching him, and one wrong move could expose Earth's plans. Still, He couldn't sit idle while the council plotted against his homeworld. Late that night, in a dimly lit backroom of the station, he met with an unexpected ally. Lyara, a Valoran diplomat who had evaded capture, stepped out of the shadows. Her golden eyes glimmered with defiance. "They think they've silenced us," she said, her voice a fierce whisper. "But we still have friends here, and we have information you need." Grant raised an eyebrow. "What kind of information?" Lyara handed him a data crystal. "Proof. The council orchestrated everything. The Draken raids, the evidence against us, it was all fabricated. They wanted an excuse to expand their power. If you can get this to your leaders, it might change everything." Grant took the crystal, his mind racing. This could expose them, but getting it out of here won't be easy. Lyra's lips curved into a grim smile. "That's your problem, human. Just make sure you don't fail. The galaxy is counting on you." Back on Earth, Admiral Vega stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, Earth's flagship, watching as the fleet prepared for its mission. Silent as shadows, the ships vanished into hyperspace, their cloaking systems activated. The Council might have power, but Earth had something stronger: resilience, intelligence, and a determination forged in fire. As the Indomitable disappeared into the void, Vega whispered to herself, "They wanted us to be afraid. They'll soon learn they should have feared us instead." The ambush. The void of space stretched endlessly, a silent and unforgiving battlefield. The Council's fleet, a massive armada of sleek, silver warships, lay in wait near Valoran's last stronghold. Their weapons were primed, their soldiers ready. It wasn't a blockade, it was a trap. The Council knew Earth would come, and they planned to crush the human fleet in one decisive blow. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her face illuminated by the soft glow of tactical displays. The Earth-Valoran coalition had been monitoring the Council's movements for weeks, and now the moment of truth had arrived. She tapped her fingers on the edge of the console, her sharp eyes scanning the incoming data. "Status report," she commanded. Lieutenant Orin, a young officer with a calm demeanor, replied. "Council fleet is maintaining position near the Valoran stronghold. They've deployed minefields and defense platforms. It's a perfect kill zone." Vega smirked faintly. "Perfect for them, maybe. But they don't know we're here." She turned to her communications officer. "Signal the fleet. We execute the plan in 10 minutes. No mistakes." Meanwhile, Commander Elijah Grant was on a Council-controlled station orbiting the Valoran stronghold, blending in among the diplomats and officers. He moved cautiously through the metallic halls, avoiding surveillance drones and suspicious eyes. The data crystal Lyara had given him was hidden in his jacket, but he couldn't transmit it yet. The Council's security systems would detect it instantly. In the shadows of a maintenance corridor, Elijah met with Dren, a Valoran engineer who had managed to avoid the Council's grasp. The wiry alien handed him a portable jammer device. "This will block their sensors for a few minutes," Dren said in a hushed tone, his antennae twitching nervously. "But after that, they'll know something's wrong." Elijah nodded. "A few minutes is all I need. Once the fleet makes their move, they'll be too distracted to care about me." Back in space, the Earth-Valoran fleet was cloaked and closing in. The newly integrated stealth technology hummed quietly as the ships glided through the darkness. The Indomitable led the charge, its massive hull bristling with weaponry. "Captain Vega," Orin reported, "we've reached the outer edge of the kill zone. The Council hasn't detected us yet." Vega nodded. "Good. Activate Phase 1. Let's give them a little something to think about." On her command, a group of unmanned drones launched from the Earth fleet. They moved swiftly, lighting up as they crossed the Council's detection range. The Council's fleet reacted instantly, their ships shifting into formation and firing a barrage of missiles at the decoys. "Just as we thought," Vega muttered. "Trigger happy fools. Phase 2. Begin the sweep." On the council station, alarms blared as the fleet's sensors detected the drones. Officers scrambled to issue orders, their confidence shaken by the unexpected activity. Elijah used the chaos to his advantage, slipping into a secured communications room. As he activated the jammer, the screen in front of him came alive with encrypted data feeds. He quickly uploaded the contents of the data crystal, sending the incriminating evidence back to Earth. Transmission in progress, a robotic voice announced. Elijah's heart pounded. Every second felt like an eternity. Just as the upload reached 90%, the door burst open, and 2 council guards stormed in. "Freeze," one of them barked, leveling a plasma rifle at him. Elijah didn't hesitate. He grabbed a small flash grenade from his belt and threw it. The room filled with blinding light, and the guards stumbled, disoriented. By the time they recovered, the terminal was empty, and Elijah was gone. Above the Valoran stronghold, the true battle began. Earth's fleet decloaked in perfect formation, their weapons aimed directly at the Council's warships. The element of surprise was total. "Fire at will," Vega ordered. The Indomitable unleashed its full arsenal, massive beams of energy tearing through the Council's defenses. The smaller Valoran ships followed suit, their pilots striking with precision and fury. The Council fleet scrambled to respond, their earlier confidence replaced by panic. Their ships were powerful but rigid, their tactics predictable. Earth's forces moved like a well-oiled machine, exploiting every weakness. Inside the Council station, Elijah raced toward the hangar, pursued by more guards. His path was blocked by a towering security droid, its metallic limbs bristling with weapons. "Human intruder detected," it intoned, raising a plasma cannon. Elijah dove behind a cargo crate as the cannon fired, the heat of the blast singing the air around him. He gritted his teeth, pulling out a compact EMP device. Timing it perfectly, he rolled the device toward the droid. The EMP activated with a sharp crack, and the droid froze mid-motion, its systems overloaded. Elijah didn't wait to admire his handiwork. He sprinted to a small Valoran transport ship and fired up the engines. As the hangar doors opened, he heard the voice of a council officer over the intercom. "Intruder escaping. Intercept immediately." The ship launched into the chaos of the battle, weaving through laser fire and explosions. Elijah's voice crackled over the fleet's comm channel. "This is Grant. Data's secure. Let's finish this. Battle for survival." The Council's retreating fleet had barely escaped Earth's fury, their sleek warships scared and limping into hyperspace. But the brief victory for Earth's forces was overshadowed by a grim revelation. A second, far larger Council fleet was en route. The countdown to annihilation had begun. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her face expressionless, but her mind racing. The tactical display before her revealed the Council's reinforcements, a massive armada with firepower that could overwhelm even Earth's advanced fleet. They had hours at most before the enemy arrived. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Valoran stronghold," Lieutenant Orin reported. "Put it through," Vega ordered. The holographic form of Jirak, the Valoran engineer who had smuggled the stealth technology to Earth, flickered to life. His golden skin was pale, his antennae trembling. "Admiral, we've detected an anomaly in the Council's fleet composition. Their flagship is carrying an experimental weapon, a gravitic disruptor. If activated, it could destabilize the entire system, including your fleet." Vega's eyes narrowed. "A system-wide destabilizer. How close are they to completing it?" "They'll need at least 2 hours to activate it once they arrive," Jirak replied. "But if they do, nothing will survive. Not your ships, not our stronghold, not even the planet below." Vega turned to her officers. "Options." Commander Elijah Grant's voice cut through the tense silence over the comms. "We take out that disruptor before it can go online. I've seen how the Council operates. They'll protect it with everything they've got, but we got one advantage. They don't know we're aware of it." Vega smirked faintly. Then we hit them where it hurts. Prepare the fleet for a two-pronged assault. We'll engage their forces head-on, while a strike team infiltrates the flagship to disable the disruptor. Hours later, the Earth-Valoran coalition stood ready. The combined fleet, though smaller than the incoming Council armada, was unified by determination and rage. Each captain knew the odds were slim, but retreat wasn't an option. The calm before the storm shattered as the Council fleet emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of massive warships filled the void, their hulls bristling with weapons. At the center of the formation was their flagship, a colossal vessel radiating menace. The gravitic disruptor was visible as a massive, glowing sphere embedded in its core. Admiral Vega's voice rang through the fleet. "This is it. Every shot counts. We fight for Earth, for Valoran, and for the galaxy's future. Engage." The void lit up as energy beams and missile trails streaked across the battlefield. Earth's warships struck with pinpoint precision, exploiting weaknesses in the Council's rigid formation. Valoran pilots, using their nimble ships, darted through enemy lines, causing chaos and drawing fire. On the Indomitable, Vega coordinated the chaos with unwavering focus. Send Delta Squadron to flank their right side. Keep pressure on their carriers. We can't let them deploy their full fighter complement. "Yes, Admiral," Orin replied, relaying the orders. Meanwhile, deep within the battle, Commander Grant led the infiltration team aboard a stealth shuttle. They slipped past the Council's defenses, the stolen Valoran cloaking technology shielding them from detection. As the shuttle docked with the flagship, Grant checked his weapon and turned to his team, a mix of Earth Marines and Valoran soldiers. "This is it," he said. "We find the disruptor, plant the charges, and get out before they know we're here. Stay sharp." The team moved silently through the flagship's corridors, their boots barely making a sound on the metallic floors. The air was thick with tension. Every corner could hide a patrol. Every sealed door could be a trap. As they approached the disruptor chamber, their path was blocked by a squad of Council guards. Grant raised his hand, signaling the team to halt. The guards' reptilian eyes scanned the corridor, their weapons ready. Grant gestured to one of the Valoran soldiers, who deployed a small drone. The drone zipped into the room, releasing a pulse that disoriented the guards. In a flash, the team moved, neutralizing the guards with precision strikes. The chamber housing the disruptor was massive, its walls lined with pulsating energy conduits. The weapon itself loomed in the center, its glowing sphere rotating ominously. "Plant the charges," Grant ordered. "We've got 10 minutes before." An alarm blared, cutting him off. The room's doors sealed shut, and a voice echoed through the chamber. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" It was Counselor Merrick, his voice dripping with contempt. A holographic projection of his snarling face appeared before them. "You humans are clever, I'll give you that," Merrick continued. "But it won't matter. You're too late. The disruptor will activate in 1 hour, and your pathetic fleet will be dust." Grant gritted his teeth. "We'll see about that." Back in the battle, the Earth fleet struggled against the Council's overwhelming numbers. Admiral Vega knew they couldn't hold the line much longer. "Admiral," Orin said urgently, "the flagship's power output just spiked. They're preparing the disruptor." Vega's jaw tightened. "We're running out of time." Inside the flagship, Grant's team worked frantically to set the charges. The air was thick with smoke and tension as more guards stormed into the chamber. A fierce firefight erupted, energy bolts flying in every direction. One of the Valoran soldiers was hit, collapsing with a grunt. "Go," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." Grant hesitated for a split second before nodding. "We'll come back for you." As the final charge was set, Grant activated his comm. "Charges are live. Get ready for fireworks." Turning the tide, the flagship's core chamber pulsed with an eerie rhythmic hum. The gravitic disruptor, a swirling sphere of raw energy, began to glow brighter, its activation drawing closer with every second. The clock was ticking, and Commander Elijah Grant's strike team raced through the labyrinthine corridors of the Council flagship. Their mission to plant explosives on the disruptor was complete, but their path to escape was anything but clear. Behind them, alarms screamed, and Council guards poured into the halls. Blaster fire ricocheted off the metallic walls, forcing the team to duck into cover. Grant shouted over the chaos, his voice steady despite the panic creeping into his mind. "Keep moving. We're not dying here." Valoran engineer Dren, panting heavily, fumbled with a control panel beside a sealed door. "This should open, if I can bypass their security." "Dren," Grant said sharply, firing at an approaching guard, "you've got 30 seconds, or we're finding another way." Sweat dripped down Dren's brow as his fingers worked furiously. The door hissed open just as another squad of guards rounded the corner. Grant threw a smoke grenade behind them, shrouding their retreat. "Go, go, go!" The team sprinted through the door as the sound of footsteps echoed ominously behind them. The disruptor was set to detonate in 15 minutes, but the odds of them reaching their escape shuttle in time were slim. Above the Valoran stronghold, the battle raged on. Earth's fleet, though outnumbered, fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her hands gripping the railing, as explosions flashed across the tactical display. "Admiral," Lieutenant Orin reported, his voice strained, "our left flank is collapsing. The Resolute just took a direct hit to their engines. They're drifting into enemy fire." Vega didn't hesitate. "Deploy Delta Squadron to cover them. Focus fire on their assault carriers. If those fighters launch, we're finished." "Yes, Mom." The bridge shook violently as a missile struck the ship's shields. Vega steadied herself, her sharp mind working through the chaos. She knew the fleet couldn't hold out much longer. Their survival hinged on Grant's team disabling the disruptor. "Commander Grant," Vega said into the comm, her voice calm despite the mounting pressure. "Status report." Grant's voice crackled back. "Charges are set, but we've got a slight problem. The flagship's defenses are tighter than expected. We're running out of time." Vega clenched her jaw. "Do whatever it takes. If that disruptor goes online, we're all dead." Inside the flagship, the strike team reached the hangar, only to find their shuttle surrounded by Council guards. The sleek Valoran ship was their only way off the flagship, but the guards had set up a defensive perimeter. Grant surveyed the scene, his mind racing. "We don't have time for subtlety. Dren, is the shuttle ready to fly?" Dren nodded. "Yes, but we need to reach it first." Grant turned to the team. "Cover fire. We push straight through. No stopping. On my mark." The team nodded, their weapons primed. "Mark." The corridor erupted in chaos as the team charged forward, firing at the guards. The Valoran soldiers moved with precision, their light frames darting through cover as they provided suppression. Grant led the charge, his rifle blazing. One by one, the guards fell, but not without losses. A human Marine cried out as he was hit, collapsing to the floor. "Leave me," he shouted. "Just go." Grant hesitated for a moment, then grimly nodded. "We'll make this count." The team reached the shuttle and piled inside as Dren powered up the engines. The sleek craft roared to life, lifting off just as more guards flooded into the hangar. Plasma fire streaked past them as the shuttle shot out into the battle above. In space, the Council fleet closed in on Earth's forces. The Indomitable was battered but still standing, its weapons firing relentlessly. Vega's voice was sharp as she issued commands. "Redirect power to forward shields. Keep those cruisers off us." Orin glanced at her, worry etched into his face. "Admiral, the fleet can't hold much longer. We've lost nearly a third of our ships." Before Vega could respond, the tactical display lit up with an alert. The Council flagship's disruptor began emitting a low-frequency pulse. "They're activating it," Orin whispered. Vega's expression hardened. "Patch me through to the fleet." The channel opened, her voice steady and commanding. This is Admiral Vega to all ships. We fought too hard to give up now. Hold the line. The disruptor will be neutralized, or we die trying. You're not just fighting for Earth. You're fighting for everyone the Council is crushed under its boot. Let's show them what humanity is made of. The shuttle carrying Grant's team raced through the chaos, dodging enemy fire. Inside, Grant checked his watch. 5 minutes until detonation. Dren, can we outrun the blast radius? The engineer's face was pale. Barely. If we push the engines past their limits, we might make it. Do it, Grant ordered. As the shuttle broke free of the flagship's immediate vicinity, Grant turned to look out the viewport. The flagship loomed like a shadow of death, its disruptor glowing brighter. Detonation in 3 minutes, Dren announced. Grant's fingers tightened on the edge of his seat. Come on, come on. Vengeance unleashed. The explosion of the Council's flagship sent a shockwave rippling through space, its energy temporarily disrupting the battlefield. The gravitic disruptor's destruction was a victory, but there was no time to celebrate. The remaining Council fleet, though shaken, was regrouping, and their focus was now singular: obliterate the Earth-Valoran coalition. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her expression unreadable as she processed the reports. The tactical display showed the remaining Council warships converging on their position like a pack of predators. Earth's fleet was battered, and Valoran reinforcements were running low on ammunition. The odds were stacked against them. Status report, Vega commanded, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Orin, his face pale, responded, Council forces are reorganizing. We're outnumbered 4-1, Admiral. The fleet can't hold this position for long. Vega's eyes narrowed. We don't need to hold. We need to hit them where it hurts. She turned to her comms officer. Get me Commander Grant. In the cockpit of the Valoran shuttle, Commander Elijah Grant leaned back in his seat, catching his breath. His team was alive, but barely. Dren was frantically recalibrating the shuttle systems, trying to stabilize the overloaded engines after their narrow escape from the flagship's destruction. The comm crackled to life, and Vega's voice came through. Grant, the disruptor is down, but we're not out of this yet. The Council fleet is regrouping. I need you to deliver a payload. Grant raised an eyebrow. You're talking about the Stiletto, aren't you? The Stiletto was a prototype Earth weapon, a torpedo designed to penetrate and destroy heavily armored targets. Its existence was a closely guarded secret, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Exactly, Vega confirmed. The Council's command ship is leading the charge. If we take it out, their fleet will fall into disarray. Grant glanced at his team. They were exhausted and wounded, but none of them flinched. We'll do it. Just make sure we have a clear path. The Council command ship, a towering behemoth of metal and firepower, loomed in the distance. It was the heart of the remaining fleet, its sheer size intimidating even from afar. On board, Counselor Merrick paced the command deck, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he observed the battle. They're weaker than I expected, Merrick hissed, his claws tapping against the railing. Focus fire on the human flagship. Without their leader, they'll crumble. His second in command, a smaller, wiry alien, hesitated. Counselor, their tactics are unconventional. They're not retreating. They're fighting like animals, Merrick interrupted. And we'll crush them like animals. Do as I ordered. The Indomitable surged forward, its weapons blazing as it carved a path through the enemy. Vega's voice rang through the comms, directing every maneuver with precision. Earth's fleet was battered, but it fought with relentless determination, exploiting every gap in the Council's formation. Orin, Vega said, her voice sharp, relay the coordinates of the Council command ship to Grant. He's our last hope. Grant's shuttle weaved through the chaos, dodging enemy fire as it approached the Indomitable. The sleek silhouette of the Stiletto torpedo was already waiting in the hangar, its payload armed and ready. Dren's voice was tense as he monitored the shuttle systems. This thing wasn't designed for combat deployment, Grant. One wrong move, and we're all toast. Grant smirked. Good thing I don't plan on making any wrong moves. As the shuttle docked, the torpedo was quickly loaded onto its undercarriage. Grant's team barely had time to breathe before they were back in the cockpit, racing toward the Council command ship. The Council fleet tightened its formation, their warships focusing their firepower on the Indomitable. The flagship shook violently as another missile struck its shields. Sparks flew across the bridge, but Vega remained steady. "Divert all power to forward shields," she ordered, "and tell Grant he's running out of time." Inside the Council command ship, Merrick sneered as he watched the battle unfold. Humans are persistent, I'll give them that. But persistence won't save them. His smugness was interrupted by an alert. A small, fast-moving object was heading straight for the command ship. "What is that?" Merrick demanded. "Unknown vessel, Counselor. It's too small to be a warship." Merrick's eyes narrowed. "Destroy it." Grant's shuttle screamed toward the command ship, enemy fire streaking past on all sides. The torpedo's targeting system locked onto the command ship's central reactor, a critical weak point. "Hold steady," Grant shouted as the shuttle jolted from another near miss. Dren's voice was frantic. "We've got 3 seconds before they lock onto us. Launch it now." Grant slammed the release, and the stiletto torpedo shot forward, its sleek form cutting through the void. The team watched in tense silence as the weapon hurtled toward its target. The command ship's defensive systems activated, firing a barrage of interceptors, but it was too late. The stiletto struck its mark, burrowing deep into the ship's reactor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the command ship erupted in a massive explosion, its debris scattering across the battlefield. The shockwaves sent nearby Council ships into disarray, their formations collapsing as panic set in. On the bridge of the Indomitable, cheers erupted as the tactical display updated. The command ship was gone, and the Council fleet was in chaos. Vega allowed herself a small smile. "Grant, you did it." His voice came back through the calm, weary but triumphant. "Glad we could help. Now let's finish this." A new order. The remains of the Council's once mighty fleet drifted through the void, their shattered ships glowing faintly against the cold backdrop of space. Earth's forces stood victorious but battered, their warships scared and smoking from the relentless battle. The Indomitable led the fleet as it advanced toward the Valoran stronghold, a beacon of defiance in the aftermath of chaos. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge, the faintest trace of relief crossing her face. The Council's command ship was gone, and the remaining Council forces were retreating, leaderless and broken. But the victory came at a cost. Too many ships lost. Too many lives sacrificed. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady, despite the weight of exhaustion pressing on her shoulders. Lieutenant Orin responded, his tone grim. "We've lost 40% of the fleet. The Valoran forces are down to their last operational ships. The Council is in full retreat, but several of their carriers remain intact. They're regrouping in neutral territory." Vega nodded. "And the civilians?" Orin's face softened. "The stronghold is safe. No civilian casualties reported." For the first time in hours, Vega allowed herself to exhale. "Good." Part 7. A New Order. The remains of the Council's once mighty fleet drifted through the void, their shattered ships glowing faintly against the cold backdrop of space. Earth's forces stood victorious but battered, their warships scared and smoking from the relentless battle. The Indomitable led the fleet as it advanced toward the Valoran stronghold, a beacon of defiance in the aftermath of chaos. Admiral Serena Vega stood on the bridge, the faintest trace of relief crossing her face. The Council's command ship was gone, and the remaining Council forces were retreating, leaderless and broken. But the victory came at a cost. Too many ships lost. Too many lives sacrificed. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady, despite the weight of exhaustion pressing on her shoulders. Lieutenant Orin responded, his tone grim. We've lost 40% of the fleet. The Valoran forces are down to their last operational ships. The Council is in full retreat, but several of their carriers remain intact. They're regrouping in neutral territory. Vega nodded. And the civilians? Orin's face softened. The stronghold is safe. No civilian casualties reported. For the first time in hours, Vega allowed herself to exhale. Good. Commander Elijah Grant and his team returned to the Indomitable aboard their battered shuttle, their faces etched with exhaustion. As they stepped into the hangar, they were greeted by a wave of applause from the crew. Grant raised a hand, his voice rough but firm. Save it for the fallen. They're the real heroes. Despite his words, the crew's respect was palpable. He had led a mission that turned the tide, and everyone knew it. Grant made his way to the bridge, where Vega was waiting. She turned to him, her usual sharp demeanor softened slightly. "Nice work, Commander," she said. Grant shrugged, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Just another day at the office." Vega chuckled softly, but her expression grew serious. "We've won the battle, but the war isn't over. The Council won't forget this. We need to be ready for what comes next." Far away, in a shadowy chamber deep within the remnants of the Council's power, Councillor Merrick and a few surviving leaders convened. The holographic display before them flickered with images of Earth's fleet. "They're more dangerous than we anticipated," one leader hissed, their voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. Merrick's claws tapped against the table, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Dangerous, yes, but not invincible. This was only a skirmish. We still control the majority of the galaxy's resources. Earth may have won today, but their arrogance will be their undoing." The others nodded reluctantly, but the cracks in their unity were evident. Back on the Indomitable, the Earth-Valoran coalition convened to discuss their next steps. Representatives from both sides joined the meeting via holographic projections, their faces weary but determined. "We've shown the galaxy that the Council isn't invincible," said Jirak, the Valoran engineer who had delivered the stealth technology. "But they'll come back stronger. We need allies, species who have suffered under the Council's rule. If we unite, we can challenge their dominance." Admiral Vega leaned forward, her green eyes sharp. "Agreed. But we need to move carefully. If we're seen as the aggressors, the Council will use it against us. We'll fight, but we'll also inspire. Show the galaxy what true leadership looks like." Commander Grant nodded. "The Council thrives on fear and control. If we can break that, their power crumbles." In the days that followed, Earth's fleet began rebuilding. Messages were sent across the galaxy, reaching out to species who had been oppressed by the Council. Some responded with skepticism, others with cautious hope. On Valoran, celebrations erupted as refugees returned to their homes, escorted by Earth's warships. For the first time in decades, the Valoran people felt safe. Commander Grant walked through the streets of the Valoran capital, now bustling with life. Lyara, the Valoran diplomat who had risked everything to expose the Council's lies, approached him. "You've given my people something we haven't had in a long time," she said, her golden eyes shimmering. Grant raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Hope." The final scene shifts to the Indomitable as it patrols the edge of Council space. Admiral Vega stands on the bridge, staring out at the stars. "Do you think they'll come back?" Orin asked quietly. "They will," Vega replied without hesitation. "But when they do, we'll be ready. Earth doesn't back down." The camera pans out, revealing Earth's fleet, scared but unbroken, standing wash over a galaxy on the brink of change. The Council's reign of fear was crumbling, and in its place, a new order was beginning to take shape.